In this video, I'm going to be talking about Gabriel and what he would be like in a horror version of Miraculous. Before I get started though, there is something I want to talk about. So I posted my first video on Reddit, and to that I got a comment about the very first thing I said in the video. I said that all Miraculous fans think that it is a terrible show, and now I realize how crazy it was of me to say that. By saying that right in the intro of the video, it was like me basically saying, so Miraculous is a terrible show and it sucks and I should change everything about it. Like, now I realize that's a crazy way to start a video and a crazy thing to say in general. I was being very ignorant in saying that everyone thinks Miraculous is a terrible show, because obviously that is not true at all. The reason I said that is because I know there is a big group of fans that do think that the show isn't written that well, and I'm one of them. But it was very wrong of me to say that all Miraculous fans agree with that. Honestly, if I had just said that a lot of Miraculous fans agreed that the show is terrible and not that everyone thinks that it's terrible, I wouldn't be in this position now. So I just want to take this moment to apologize for my ignorance and to the people who do like the show and to the people who work very hard on making the show. The person who brought this to my attention also said that there's just too much negativity and toxicity in this fandom. I also now realize that this is very true, and it is very sad that a lot of the fandom likes to hate on Miraculous. Obviously, I don't absolutely hate the show. I'm a fan and I still watch it because I'm invested. And I know that there are good things in the show. But by what this one commenter told me, I realized that a lot of people, including myself, like to talk about the negative things in Miraculous, and I realized that this is sad and toxic. This even gave me the idea to make a video talking about everything I do like about Miraculous. So hopefully I can make that video sometime soon. I would have apologized about this sooner, but I had already made my previous video when I got this comment, so I couldn't apologize about it in my second video. So I'm apologizing about it now. Finally, our last main character that we need to go over is Gabriel. So I was thinking, instead of him being a villain to bring his wife back to life, he could just be a downright evil man who just wants to harm others. But I feel like it's interesting for him to initially want to bring his wife back to life, and in the process becoming obsessed with getting revenge on Ladybug and Cat Noir for all of their victories over him, and just wanting to defeat them in general. Also, while researching Gabriel's character, I noted that he and Marinette are actually very similar. As said in this wiki article about Gabriel, it says, he had a problem with Adrien starting a romantic relationship with Marinette, due to him thinking she's not good enough for his son as she's just the daughter of local bakers. When Gabriel himself came from identical if not lower origins than her, his in-laws didn't accept his relationship with Emily and thought she was too good for him, resulting in Emily giving up everything for Gabriel. He mocked Marinette when she said that fashion was a form of self-expression to make people happy and help make their dreams come true, when he himself used to make clothes to make people happy himself and have their dreams come true. Because of the similarities or parallels between Gabriel and Marinette, I thought I could use inspiration from the new version of Marinette I have created in order to make a new version of Gabriel as well, and that would be taking her obsessive love trait and also applying it to Gabriel. Granted, in the show, Marinette and Gabriel are not similar because of their romantic tendencies, but just hear me out on this idea. Gabriel is so in love with Emily, but the truth is, he doesn't actually love her. He's obsessed with her, addicted to the idea that she loves him too, but there's always doubt in his mind, doubts that Emily doesn't really love him, and maybe that she's seeing other men, which is why he never leaves her. He always strives to win her over completely, so when she dies, he is overcome by grief. The object of his obsession is dead, and now there's nothing to reassure him. This obsessive love could actually make sense, granted that Gabriel ends up developing an obsession with defeating Ladybug and Cat Noir and obtaining power. It's proven that he no longer wants to bring Emily back to life, but rather he just becomes power-hungry and vengeful. So maybe obsession is just a big part of his life, and he needs something to be obsessed with in order to keep himself calm or something. Also, you might be thinking, if Gabriel didn't trust Emily and thought she didn't love him or was cheating on him, why would he stay married to her for so long? Well, the answer to that is that another trait of obsessive love that I didn't mention with Marinette previously is that people with obsessive love strive to make the other person fall in love with them. Obsessive love is always one-sided. So basically, if their crush or the object of their obsession falls in love with them or they start dating, they would lose their obsession because the obsession comes from the addicting feeling of being in love, not actually being with the other person. So when they start dating, the person will most likely lose feelings. So for example, in this version that I've created, if Marinette actually started dating Adrien, she would instantly lose feelings for him because she was never in love with him in the first place. She was just addicted to the feeling of being in love, if that makes sense. But if the person starts dating their crush and they feel like they still aren't reciprocating their feelings, they will continue trying to get the other person to fall in love with them, or they continue to find reassurance in the little things they do. So in the case of Gabriel, if he also has an obsessive crush on Emily, and if there are doubts in their relationship, that will still keep him with her. So okay, I found Marinette's and Adrien's personalities by applying mental conditions to them. So I want to do the same with Gabriel. For Marinette, it was her attachment issues, and for Adrien, it was his antisocial personality. But for Gabriel, I'm going to go with his obsession. So I searched up what causes obsession, and mostly it's genetic or learned by children with parents who are obsessive. It can also be caused by trauma or other mental health conditions, and since we have already identified Adrien as antisocial, let's just do the same to Gabriel, since he is Adrien's father. So here are the traits Gabriel would have if he had antisocial personality disorder: limited empathy, impulsivity, recklessness, lack of remorse, deceitfulness, irresponsibility, aggressive behavior, superficiality, violence, and manipulativeness. And again, these are already familiar traits with Gabriel, so this isn't too far from the truth. So with all of this being said, it looks like Gabriel would pretty much be the same, only since this wouldn't be a version of Miraculous for kids. He would just be more violent. And maybe his desire to take Ladybug and Cat Nora's Miraculous in order to bring his wife back to life changes into an obsession much faster than it does in the show. But I'm not going to leave it at that. I still have one more idea. So this isn't actually my original idea. When I first got into the show a few years ago, I saw a TikTok saying this, and that idea has stuck with me ever since, and it has come back to haunt me today. Now, I don't know if I would have thought of this myself, but I'm just going to credit this person either way. Anyway, basically, the person in the video said that if Miraculous was in a kid show, Gabriel would definitely have intercourse with his dead wife's body, and that's definitely disturbing, so for our purposes, I'm going with it. A long time ago, I read this little paragraph of this book called The Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. And it basically talks about the fetishization of dead women. It says, in death, the female loses the quality of being other and becomes an inanimate object that no longer threatens male order. Her body, once a site of superlative alterity, can now be controlled, composed, and dissected. In this state, the woman can be idolized. These ideas can be placed within the 19th century patriarchal cult of invalidism that, I'm sorry, I'm not going to try to pronounce that, has described. This cult glorified female suffering, illness, and consequently their deaths. Women who could be defined as either faint, frail, or fading away were set as icons of virtuous femininity. The consumptive look consequently became an ideal of feminine beauty, which prescribed pale, almost translucent skin, feverish eyes, and an emaciated body. This sort of idealization went hand in hand with an eroticization of the dead female, the ultimate object of male fantasy. I also found the explanation in shorter words, saying that necrophilia involves desire for a partner who is unable to resist or reject, and the desire to have power over others in order to enhance self-esteem, and also to get rid of feelings of solitude. There are many motives. Necrophiliacs may have poor self-esteem, and it can be due in part to a significant loss. They can also be fearful to the dead and transform their fear into a desire. They can also develop a fantasy of sex with the corpse, sometimes after exposure to a corpse. According to a study, some are motivated by a desire to reunite with a lost partner, and some are motivated by attraction to dead people. Well, according to a lot of cases, necrophilia is motivated by control, power, and low self-esteem. The necrophiliac is able to control their victim, and they feel a sense of power, which boosts their self-esteem. This honestly just reminds me of what I already said for Adrien, who I determined was to control the people around him, specifically the object of his obsession, who is Ladybug. Since I'm applying similar traits to Gabriel, I'll make it to where he also wants to control the people around him. And this makes sense since he already controls Adrien. So we have to delve into what would initiate Gabriel's attraction. Maybe when Emily dies, something comes over him. The woman he had been obsessed with, who he wanted to reciprocate his feelings, dies. And when this happens, he unexpectedly finds that he finally has the control he always wanted over her. It's not what he initially wanted, but he finds that Emily's death satisfies him. He no longer doubts her love for him, and now he can do things he couldn't do when she was alive, things she can't question or reject. Because of this, he becomes more fascinated to corpses. He finds beauty in people who look or are sick, and maybe he just straight up becomes a serial killer. And the first victim that honestly comes to mind would be Natalie. But that's heading into story territory, so I'm going to save that for another day. So long story short, if Miraculous was horror, Gabriel would basically be the same, only he would be even more obsessive, violent, and psychotic, and he would be a necrophiliac. You would think that the things that make horror horror are things like monsters and superstitions, and not the main cast. But ironically enough, in the case of Miraculous, the main characters by themselves could manage to make it a horror story. Obviously, there are many ways to make Miraculous horror, and like I said at the beginning, I was looking forward to going further with this by not just looking into the characters, but also going into the actual story of what Miraculous would be like if it was horror. Depending on how this video does, I'll look forward to making more parts, not just talking about if Miraculous was horror, but if it was other genres too, like if it was a crime series or sci-fi. If anyone watches this, and hopefully I'm not just talking to myself when I say this, let me know if you want to see a second part.